Recording in
Commissioner
progress.
Francis,
Present.
Commissioner Hopkins,
Here.
Commissioner Khan,
Here.
Commissioner Wilkin,
Here, sorry.
thank you. Vice Chair Quincy is absent. Chair Jorgensen.
Here. So thank you. Let the record reflect that commissioners are present through teleconferencing. And I'd like to remind you that, commissioners, that it's helpful to reduce background noise by muting when you're not up and ready to speak. So from there, we'll go to the Pledge of Allegiance. Emily, would you lead us?
Happy to. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And thank you, Kevin, for the flag. So the first item is public comment. This is on items that are not on tonight's agenda. And so we'll hear, these items are generally referred to staff, and if action by the commission is necessary, it might be scheduled for a later meeting. Deputy City Clerk, do we have any public comment? Anybody raising their hands virtually?
Nobody has raised their hand yet. Let me just remind the people in attendance that if you'd like to speak, you can go ahead and raise your virtual hand and I will recognize you and promote you to a panelist so that you can share your audio and your video, and you'll have 3 minutes to make your comment. We'll just give them a few more seconds to see if anybody is looking for the raise hand button. Seeing none, back to you, Chair.
Okay, then we'll move on to the consent agenda item, which is the consideration of the meeting minutes of December 8th, 2021, years ago by now. So does anyone have any comments, corrections, or additions to the minutes? Not seeing anyone. Do we have a motion to accept and approve them?
I move to accept and approve the minutes from the December 8th meeting.
December 8th, exactly. Thank you.
And I'll second it. That's Commissioner Khan.
Commissioner Khan seconds. Kevin, would you then please call the roll?
Commissioner Francis,
Present.
Commissioner Khan,
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkin,
Yes.
Chair Jorgensen.
Yes.
Chair Jorgensen, this is Commissioner Dan Dekar. I had a problem getting logged in, but I'm here and
So glad you're here. Thank you.
and I also would like to vote to approve.
Thank you. So
Thank you. I have that in the record.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Glad you got in.
Yes.
So we're actually then ready for public hearings, and I want to state and read actually the context here that any court challenge to the action taken on public hearing items on this agenda may be limited to considering only those issues raised at the public hearing or in written correspondence delivered to the city of San Luis Obispo at or prior to the public hearing. Now, if you wish to speak, please give your name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. So the first item tonight is 55 Broad and 625 Ramona. That's a corner there. I think we're ready for the staff report. Oh, and let me quickly ask, I forgot one thing before we start that. I need to ask each planning commissioner if they've had any ex parte disclosures of contact with anyone who has provided information to the planning commissioners not on the record, so that that information may be used as part of the decision-making process. Is there anyone who's been speaking with applicants or others?
No.
I don't see anybody. Good. Well, then we'll move on to the staff report. And that'll be Associate Professor. Could be an associate professor. He'd be good at it. Kyle Bell, Associate Planner.
Thank you for that, Chair Jorgensen. Yeah, so the first item tonight we have was for project at, I'm sorry, what was that? Oh, yeah, so the first project we have tonight was for a project at 55 Broad Street. The applicant has requested that the project be continued to a date certain of March 23rd. This is to allow the applicant and staff to discuss some of the conditions of approval that were presented. There was some clarification needed on some of the utilities conditions that we were unable to answer for the hearing today. So the applicant would just like a little bit more time to work that out. And so they were eager to get feedback from the Planning Commission on any concerns. So they did want me to pitch that if there are any planning commissioners who have concerns or questions for the applicant, you're welcome to present them to me and I can forward them on and we can address any concerns or clarification for the March 23rd hearing.
Do you want us to do that now or at a different time?
Probably a different time because I don't believe the applicant team is all here on the call today. What the applicant team is looking for is just a motion of continuance with a date certain, and then we can proceed to. Well, I guess first we have to hold public comments on the item, and then we can deliberate.
So Kevin, are there? Do you see any hands raised? Are there anyone in the public who wishes to comment on what we've just learned?
Thanks, Chair Jorgensen. Let's just give the public another heads up on that. That was fairly quick. So to the public in attendance, what's being asked now is if you have any comments that you'd like to share at this time for this item that is being requested to be continued to a future date certain. So if you want to go ahead and speak on that now, please go ahead and raise your hand and I will recognize you to be able to comment to the Planning Commission. We'll just give you about 5 to 10 seconds to find that raise hand button. Seeing none, Chair Jorgensen, back to you.
Okay. So let me clarify. We're going to consider a motion in just a minute to continue this item, but we can provide you with questions at this point, or that needs to be at a different time. Just want to be sure everybody's clear on this.
Yeah, I'd probably recommend reaching out to me individually, and then we can I can forward things on to the applicant. So when we meet on March 23rd, then when we have the ex parte communication question, you can communicate that you've reached out to me and we've talked about the project. So
okay,
that would be my recommendation. But I am available for questions, but yeah, we don't have the whole team here to answer everything.
So would someone then like to move a continuation?
I so move the continuation of this project.
Commissioner Dandekar
Just a
moves the
quick
motion.
question before you had said, is it a utilities question that you are working on with them? Is that what you had said?
Yeah, some of the
Okay.
utility conditions were being reviewed and had some
Okay.
need some greater clarification in them.
And that won't impact any of the plans that we have in hand. That's not going to change any of those.
At this time, I'm not anticipating any changes to the project plans. It would just be there might be potential changes to the language of the conditions, but at this time it's difficult to.
Thank you.
Okay, so we need a second to Commissioner Dandekar's motion.
I'll second.
So Michael Hopkins seconds. Is there further discussion? Okay, Kevin, then would you call the roll on this vote?
Commissioner Dandekar,
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Francis,
Yes.
Commissioner Khan,
Yes.
Commissioner Wolkin,
Yes.
Chair Jorgensen.
Yes. So the motion passes unanimously. Sounds like. So we'll move on. We'll move on to the second public hearing item, which is the project located at 1146 Farmhouse Road. And again, I'd like to ask if any of you commissioners have had any ex parte discussions with anyone who's provided information to the Planning Commission.
I have not.
Kind of just shake your head at this point. I can see everybody. Okay, good. Then I think we're ready to move ahead with the staff report.
Okay, is my screen in presentation mode?
Yes.
Okay, great, perfect. Everything's working great. My name is Kyle Bell, Associate Planner at the Community Development Department. Today we will be reviewing a project at 1146 Farmhouse Road for a proposed minor subdivision of an existing 5-acre lot to be split into 2 commercial properties. The project includes an exception to the subdivision regulations for a minimum street frontage of 0 feet, where 40 feet is normally required. We'll explain that further as we proceed. Tonight's recommendation is to adopt the draft resolution, which grants approval to the project based on the findings and subject to the conditions that are outlined in the draft resolution. The project is located along Farmhouse Road, which is located within the newly annexed East Airport Annexation Area, which is also part of the Airport Area Specific Plan. The project was previously reviewed at the site under the county for a development commonly known as Sen Glennick development. And so there was a review of a full development proposal for this property a few years ago. So, but at this time it's being modified. So here's the project description. The existing property contains an existing 2-story commercial office development that is occupied by the Tri-County's regional center, and which will remain in place as it exists today. The exception is only for the lot frontage requirements for parcel 2. The project doesn't provide any frontage to any public streets, but it is providing access through a shared easement, driveway easement that connects through parcel 1 to Farmhouse Road. Here you can see the proposed lot lines that goes right directly in the middle of the lot, so both lots are relatively the same size. And then you can see that there is no frontage requirement. There's no frontage presented for the parcel 2. The project plans, if you look closely in this image, you'll be able to see the driveway access easement that is being presented as part of the project to provide vehicle and pedestrian access. This is project statistics. I think I've covered this in the description already, so we can go back to this if you need to during the discussion. But as for the evaluation, the project site has enough area to be divided so in compliance with the subdivision regulations for lot area, width, and depths. However, the property is such a size that it is undesirable to conform to the strict regulations of the lot frontage requirements due to the ability to divide access driveway rather than a flag lot oriented fault line. The proposed exception is minor in nature, where access from Farmhouse Road can be easily accomplished through the shared driveway access. And the parcel map conforms to the intent of the required findings for exceptions for lot frontage dimensions that are identified in the draft resolution. The project did include an addendum to identify consistency with the previously adopted MND for the previous project. This project does not include any new developments, and so it was able to satisfy all the required findings for an addendum that didn't identify any new impacts that weren't previously identified by the adopted MND. And that actually concludes the staff's presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
So are there questions of staff? I'm not seeing anyone with questions. We'll just open it up for public comment. And Kevin, do we have any public comment at this point? Can you seek
But we do
have-
have the applicant here today, so we might want
Oh,
to.
I'm sorry.
The applicant
Absolutely.
they haven't provided a formal presentation, but we should at least let them introduce
Okay.
themselves and be available for questions.
Okay, and let me quickly check in with the commission again, if any of you have questions for the applicant. Commissioner Khan.
Yeah, my question would be on the access. I see they're getting access to the private easement to the right of the existing building. How wide is that easement, and isn't wide enough for 2 vehicles? That would be my question.
I was muted. Yes, Kevin, I don't know, would you be able to open up the applicant's presentation, which is actually just the project plans, and then we can zoom in on a more high resolution plan set and read some of this language. But to answer the question, the driveway easement would be a 2-way access point, so it will be required to be wide enough to accommodate 2-way traffic. And as you can see, the driveway is also shared between the neighboring parcel to the left, so that all 4 properties will eventually take access from the same point on Farmhouse Road.
Yeah, just as a comment, it's also shared by the parcel behind the drainage basin. I was parked right by the drainage basin yesterday looking at the site. And this poor lady was trying to get out in her car, and I was sitting in the middle of the road, blocking the road, and she honked at me anyway. So yeah, so it's shared by all those parcels. I get it. That's my only question. Thank you.
So no other questions for the applicant then at this point? Well, we'll reserve the right to go back to the applicant if there are public comments that need to be responded to. So Kevin, would you check and see if there are any public comment on this item?
Sure. I've been trying to promote. Oh, good. Emily is being promoted now as one of the applicants, and I'm also promoting Carol Florence. You'll need to accept the invite to be a panelist, Carol, and looks like Emily is ready to go.
Yes. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Carol might not join us. She might just stay a virtual attendee rather than panelist here. But good evening, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Emily Ewer. I'm Associate Planner at Oasis Associates, here representing the property owner and applicant, which is Farmhouse Development, LLC. I want to thank staff for their presentation and echo their recommendation for approval, which includes the addendum to the mitigated negative declaration and approval of parcel map SLO LA 21-0025 as provided in the drafted findings and conditions. As noted, this property is located in the city's most recent annexation area. Planning Commission reviewed the annexation in January 2020 with City Council approval in March 2020 as well. And after a stop at LAFCO, the property is now officially in the city's jurisdiction. So yay. Wanted to just provide you a quick update on that overall annexation since I have a captive audience. Since the approval, the collective property owners have been working with the city staff to address the requirements of that annexation agreement and the conditions of approval. Primarily, it involves a public improvement plan to connect wet utilities, meter installations, and a collection of miscellaneous street improvements. These plans are currently in the plan review process with Public Works, and once the plans are approved and funded via the SCIP financing program, the city will also receive $1 million in transportation impact fees plus water and wastewater impact fees. As to the relationship of the annexation to the subdivision the annexation improvements, beyond installing new meters to the existing developments, those annexation improvements don't have a physical impact on the subject property or this subdivision, other than being in the same annexation area. So with that, we echo staff's recommendation to approve the subdivision with the minor exception request. Prior to the hearing, we did provide a memo to staff to ensure that we were understanding the intent and expectations of some of the conditions of approval specifically applied or how they would be applied to this property, and now have a clear understanding of how those conditions will be fulfilled. With that, I don't have any additional points to add that weren't addressed by staff. other than to say the access for parcel 2 is actually to the left if you're looking at the property. So it's about a 40-foot access point. So it's between, yep, there. So it's about 40 feet at the initial access on Farmhouse, and then past the development through what's currently the parking lot is a 20-foot access easement. So still provides that two-way access. So on behalf of the applicant, we appreciate your time, thoughtful consideration, and your action to approve the parcel map to create 2 commercial parcels in the newest and perhaps maybe the most fabulous location of the city. And I'm available for questions.
So are there questions of the applicant? Commissioner Khan.
I have a question. Thank you, Emily, for your presentation. So as you're sitting on Farmhouse Lane and you're looking at the existing building, the dirt driveway on the right is not the access.
Correct.
It is
On the
that.
right-
Go ahead.
Oh, yes. The right-hand side actually provides access to the still in the county agricultural properties that function as kind of rural residences to the
Okay.
north of the area. So that is to remain in place as is and remain essentially a residential access pass-through.
I see. That makes way more sense. Thank you. I understand. Appreciate the answer.
Just quickly, just for context, is this a project that was improved when it was part of that water district that was on Wells that then was to close down and accept city water, a project we heard about 3 or 4 years ago?
Yes, this annexation is somewhat related. So there is this annexation area, which is referred to as East Airport or Senclick. Yeah. There's also the West Fierro annexation, that's like the Clarion Court area. Those systems those areas have had a shared wastewater treatment facility. That upon annexation and upon completion of the wet utilities will be decommissioned. So it is in that area from a couple of years ago. Yeah.
So we're seeing the results of all of that. Good to see.
Yes. Now that it's annexed, the city gets the jurisdiction and the joy of approving subdivisions and other developments.
Yeah. Just like it was planned. Good. I like it. Are there any other questions of the applicant? Commissioner Dandekar?
Yeah, thank you, Emily. I appreciate the clarification on the road width. I would like to know if that's sufficient access for the property behind in terms of anticipated traffic, if one were to have a similar kind of development on the property at the back. What is the thinking on that in terms of the width of the easement?
Yeah, so I would say that a 20-foot fire access utility and easement is fairly standard. I do believe that commercial development is probably anticipated at about 20,000 square feet. I would have to double check that, but fairly similar to what's on parcel 1. So that's fairly common of a typical driveway commercial development access. If anybody from City Public Works wants to confirm that as well, they're.
George Jorgensen, I had a question.
Yes.
Following up on this discussion about access, I understand that the access easement to the rear parcel is 20 feet, but isn't at least the section of the proposed driveway that is adjacent to the parking spaces, isn't that drive aisle at least 24 feet wide?
Yes, so the existing driveway approach is both on the adjacent parcel and the current parcel. So down at Farmhouse, half of it, which it's definitely over 24 feet, half of it will be used to service the parcel to the west and that development. And then, so it tees, a few, probably 40, 50 feet after the entry. And then, yeah, so Kyle is Vanna Whiting that area. So yes, it's broader and wider at the start and then branches off to service both the west parcel and this parcel.
So is it fair to say then that the minimum width of that driveway access to the rear parcel is 24 feet, even though the actual easement might be 20 feet for fire purposes? It looks like in reality, there's going to be at least 24 feet of driveway width, because it looks like that would be the minimum distance between the two aisles of parking, if I'm recalling the county standard correctly.
Yeah, as far as the actual width of things, yes, it does appear to be a 24-foot wide parking lot area at this point.
Okay, so that might make us feel a little better about the actual width of the access road. Okay, that was the only question I had.
Are there other questions of the applicant? Well, Emily, thank you for your presentation, and we'll take it back to the commission for deliberation. Who'd like to start?
I can make a motion to
Sure.
approve. We want to make this
Sure.
nice and simple and straightforward. I think this is an exciting new area of office expansion in the city. Speaking from experience, as my office recently moved roughly around this area, so excited to see new neighbors coming in the near future, hopefully. Yeah, happy to make a motion to approve.
We have a second.
Yeah, I'll second that, Commissioner Khan.
Okay, so further discussion. Commissioner Dandekar, you look like you want to say something, but are you muted or?
I am mute. No, I'm not muted. I know it conformed, the 20 feet, I continue to be a little concerned because we don't really know the development that's going to go on parcel 2. And I'm concerned about bottlenecks, but I suppose those will be resolved when you get planning approval for what goes on in parcel 2. And if a wider driveway is required, it would be part of the condition of approval. I suppose we are setting the ground rules for just minimum access at this point. Would that be a correct interpretation?
Are you asking
I guess I'm
Emily Ewer, or are you
I guess
asking
I'm
staff?
musing with my fellow commissioners if anybody else seems concerned about this, or whether this is very standard and we shouldn't worry.
Well, let's ask Kyle Bell for a response.
Yes, and so yeah, this is the minimum requirement for this lot. And you are correct that if a development is proposed back there that exceeds a need of a wider driveway or access aisle, then we would require and condition amendments to the easement agreement to expand upon it. But we wouldn't know that at this time because we currently do not have any proposals for that lot. There was already an anticipation of a specific square footage for all these parcels for the property under the previous MND. And so the property next door is proposing a project and they presented their square footage already. So we already know the remaining square footage that's available to that lot. So at this time, we're not anticipating anything more intensive than the remaining square footage available.
Thank you.
Chair Jorgensen, this is Marky
Yes.
Jorgensen.
Yes.
I don't believe that we've called for public comment. I know that we promoted the applicant's representative to panelists,
I
but
believe I did. It's a good question. We'll certainly do it again if we need to. I'll have to check in with Kevin. I believe I did, and he found no one.
yeah, and then I would advise, because then we brought the applicant's representatives on to present
True.
additional information, that it
True.
would be wise just to check one more time for public comment.
That's a great idea. So Kevin, could you check again for public comment?
Absolutely. Let me just verbally go through it for the people in the audience. If you'd like to make a comment on the further presentation that you've heard on this item at this point, would be your chance. You can go ahead and do so by raising your hand, and I will call on you and promote you to make your comments. We'll give you about 10 seconds to raise your hand. Seeing none, back to you, Chair Jorgensen.
Okay, so back to the commission. Commissioner Dandekar, were you wishing to speak?
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. No further discussion. Let's call the roll.
Chair Hopkins, sorry, Commissioner Hopkins.
Be a good
Yes.
chair.
Commissioner Khan,
Yes.
Commissioner Dandekar,
Yes.
Commissioner Francis,
Yes.
Commissioner Wolkin,
Yes.
Chair Jorgensen.
Yes. So the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. So we're ready then. The last item really is the staff updates and agenda forecast. And that's from Tyler Corey, our development director.
All right, well, thanks, Chair Jorgensen. Appreciate it. It's good to see you guys after a couple-month break. So looking out, our next meeting is February 23rd. We have one item on that agenda at this time. It's an outdoor dining venue. It's on the corner of Toro and Higuera. It's located at 1166 Higuera. And this one's coming to you from a recommendation from the ARC. So this is kind of an exciting new concept that is kind of in the downtown, kind of northern downtown area that kind of redevelops an existing, I think it was an old car dealership site there. So excited to bring that forward for your review the next meeting. And then the first meeting in March is March 9th. We have the general plan annual report. So we'll be doing a kind of a comprehensive presentation on all of our kind of policy and program implementation over the last year, give you kind of some housing numbers, commercial development numbers, look at our water, look at our safety element and kind of how we're doing from a safety perspective. So a lot of good information in this document. It's something that we use kind of throughout the year and refer back to as we look for information on various projects and questions from the public. So this is really a presentation and a receive and file item, and then we'll be presenting that to the City Council in April. Same kind of concept of receive and file. So that gets us out through mid-March, and then as was mentioned, we do have the continuance for the March 23rd meeting for 55 Broad, and we might have a couple other items on that agenda that we need to finalize as well. So that's all I have in terms of a forecast. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Tyler? Commissioner Hopkins.
Yeah, just one. I know I'm being a little maybe annoying about this, but inclusionary housing ordinance, do we have an anticipated timeline as to when we can review that?
Yeah, great question. So we are going on March 1st to the City Council with a study session to look at, re-reviewing our Nexus study that we did in 2019. Building upon that, we have a recommendation from our financial consultant, EPS, that includes a recommendation for changes to our inclusionary housing ordinance that we're going to be presenting, along with a few key questions for council and some direction as we move forward. And then we're also going to be giving an update on our below market rate administrator house keys that we're onboarding right now, and talk about kind of what we're, the current contract, and then where we need to go in terms of house keys, working with the city in terms of full implementation of our housing stock on the deed restricted side. So big meeting on March 1st. And so what's going to happen from that is we're hoping to come back to city council, I believe in I think it's July. So we'll probably be back before the planning commission, targeting May, for a review of our draft recommendation on our updates to the inclusionary housing ordinance. So coming up pretty fast.
Great, thank you. And then just for a quick point of clarification, the contract review that you mentioned, do they monitor, or do they do compliance monitoring and like income monitoring of tenants in the existing for sale housing stock? Is that the services that they offer?
Correct. It's a full spectrum of services, really beyond kind of what the internal staff can manage at this time, given the growth that we've seen in our program. So yes, they're going to be doing, taking over our income certifications, periodic monitoring, and all of the requirements needed to run a successful inclusive program.
Cool. Good to know. Thank you.
Further questions? I guess we about did it. And as Tyler predicted, we were a little bit bumpy, speaking for myself, but we're getting back in the rhythm here, and we'll be really cooking by February 23rd, I'll bet. Good. So I think we're ready to adjourn. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.